Okay, so to pick up where we left off with some of those basic statistical functions that we can run within R to explore our data, I wanted to show you just a few more that really help us to expand. So again, here's where we left off with, again, those basic commands to assign to a variable, look at the data as a whole, the head, the tail, the structure of the data, column names, row names, and then summary. So next up, some of you may or may not have done this before. But R comes to us with a lot of versatility, and one of those kind of things that R has that enables it to be very versatile is the ability to bring in packages to do things. So, R's nature, anyone can go out and write a package, and you can go out and you can consume somebody else's package or library, as like certain people like to call it. Um, and again, it adds a lot of functionality to R. People always ask me how many R packages have you written. The answer is zero, and it will probably be zero for the rest of my time, simply because everybody else does it. So I have yet to been able to not find a package that wouldn't do what I needed it to without having to write one of my own. So with that, first thing I'm going to do is go over how to actually bring in a package. So I start with the install command. So I can't type today. So I'm going to say install .packages. And wow, typing's really not working today. Okay, install .packages. I'm going to install a package called the psych package. Okay, so the first thing you have to do when you bring in a package is do this, install .packages. And again, I like to run these one step at a time. Okay, so here it's just giving me a warning saying that it's already loaded, which I use this package often. So if you've never done it, you won't have it loaded already. So you can go ahead and run it again. It doesn't hurt. And then of course down here in my console, you see it's giving me the data to say it did load correctly. Okay. The next thing I have to do is I have to actually get that active. Okay, so I'm just going to say library and then psych. Okay, now what's a little misleading about packages in R is you notice when I do the install command, install.packages, I actually have to put that in quotes, okay? But then when I come down to actually make it active in my library, I don't do quotes, which again is really odd to me, but I didn't write the language. So okay, now some people panic when they see this message down here, warning message, it was built under R version 3.1.3. Okay, so that's just telling me this is under an older version of R, and just cautionary, it may or may not work. Again, most of the time this stuff is backwards compatible, but sometimes it isn't. Okay, now a lot of times this is where people always raise the discussion point with me. Well, why are you bringing in a package this way with the actual code? Why can't you just come over here to packages and bring it in this way? So you can actually say, click the install button here and bring in the package that way and check the box and eliminate the need for this code. If that's your kind of pathway to do it, I'm not saying you're wrong. I will tell you I like to have it actually in the script file, just because as these script files get passed around, and I'm guilty of this too, I like to leverage other people's code to do things within R. And if they don't actually have it in the script file itself, if I try to run this code without activating the given libraries and importing the packages, I'll get a bunch of error messages that I've got to go in and decipher. But if I have it right here in the code, the problem's solved for me. So I'm guaranteed that it's in there. So again, I always like to do it this way, just so I know we're good to go. All right, so since I've brought in that package, activated into the library, the most common thing I do with this command is the describe, okay? So I type describe and then I put my data. So if you remember, if you notice up here above, I stored that mtcars data set into the variable my data. So now I'm going to go ahead and run it, and you see the output I get is it takes all of my variables, okay, so in this case all of my column names, okay, it tells me how many observations I have, okay, and it gives me just some basic statistical functions, right, mean, standard deviation, okay, min, max, range, etc. Okay, so really useful stuff. So also, as a part of that library, one other command I like to run all the time is the COR command, or the correlation command. So if I do that on my data, again, you can see the output here where I get um, basically a matrix, right, that tells how each how the variables all correlate to each other. Okay, so I'll caution you, this data set isn't incredibly huge, right? I think I've got, what, 11 variables there. If I've got a bigger data set and I load all that in and I run the COR command, that is going to get pretty gnarly as far as what dumps out to the screen. Okay. One other command I wanted to show you, and frankly, I use this a lot in partnership with Google. If I'm trying to figure something out, okay, so any type of command, I can just type the question mark and then put in whatever I want. So in this case, I did question mark COR. So if you look over here on the right, in my help window, it will access the R help file for me, okay? And it will tell me all the arguments, the parameters, the details, everything that is contained within that function. So again, that's a real useful command that I like to use. Like I said, and to be fair, I use this in partnership with Google. If I'm trying to figure out how to do something in R, that's kind of how I proceed.